You see Clinton calling out the Epstein files? Yes, of course I have. Of course I have. I like to call it mutually assured pedophilia destruction. It's the mad principle, but for pedophilia. Something that I called out from afar a couple months prior to this was that there was a likelihood that Donald Trump was actually going to hit the Bill Clinton line. He was just going to be like, look, like the Trump DOJ was most likely going to dangle Bill Clinton as red meat for his base, with the hopes that it will get them to pay attention to Bilbo Clinton here, and then that would be enough for them. Obviously, it hasn't been all that successful. This, look, well, Bill Clinton is all over the files and not my big, beautiful president, because they botched it. They botched the coverage. They botched the release. They f***ed it up. They very clearly applied a heavy-handed redaction, as I told you already. And also on top of that, on top of the botch release, on top of the botch release, they ended up kind of up the redactions too. They ended up botching the redactions. Apparently, some of the redactions are unredacted. They have released files in the past. The Department of Justice released files in the past that were unredacted that had Trump's name all over them. But now they're releasing the very same files. Now they're releasing the very same files where they are redacting Trump's name. And it makes us, obviously, it makes everybody realize that, no, they're just like first and foremost invested in what we all suspected, which is preserving Donald Trump's name and protecting Donald Trump. And it's very cynical because they're claiming that they're doing this in an effort to protect the victims, right? But like I said, Bilbo Clinton came out and was like, it's time. It's mutually assured pedophilia destruction. He hit the button and he said, hey, put it all out there, King. Let your nuts hang. I've seen those nuts. It's Bubba time. Mutually assured pedophile destruction. That's how it is. You already know. It's all happening, baby, and it's glorious, okay? It's all happening, and it's absolutely glorious. So, tons of redaction covers financials. They molested the money. Oh, yeah. I mean, they were molesting everything out here. They were molesting the money. They were molesting what is this? There's a $10 billion debt industry by CoffeeZilla, my goat. Another banger video. Maybe we'll look at this in a little bit. Okay. But I digress. Let's get right into it. There's some fake news that came out. Not fake news necessarily, but there was some news that duped a lot of people. Letter signed by J. Epstein to Larry Nassar, cites our president. And I saw that a lot of people actually dove into that head first. Which I think separates the boys from the men in terms of the conspiracy stuff, right? Because if the Larry Nassar, let's just start here. Let's just start with the Department of Justice releasing a new trove of Epstein files, and we'll get right into it, okay? But once again, don't trust anything, okay? Don't immediately trust something if it's so convenient of a narrative. If it's too convenient of a narrative that you saw, that you have seen, don't automatically trust it. Be critical, okay? There are a lot of well-intentioned people who might actually get duped in the process because there's a lot of information coming out. And this is perhaps one of the... Being a leftist is so funny because you spend the first decades of your life trying to prevent a violent workers' revolution to preserve as much life as possible. And for what? I don't know what you're talking about. But in any case, let's get started.
Overnight, under pressure, the Department of Justice releasing thousands more Jeffrey Epstein files, the most substantial dump of documents so far, including never-before-seen investigative materials. In this email from the day after Epstein was arrested on charges of sex trafficking minors.
Okay, before we actually get to the new trove of data, it would be a disservice for me not to give you a heads up, okay? it would be a disservice for me not to give you a heads up, because I also work for the Department of Justice now. And as someone who works for the Department of Justice, I have to tell you guys, okay, listen, Trump's name is all over the files that we're about to release, okay? And I'm obviously one of the paralegals that is now tasked with doing social media at the Department of Justice. So my supervisors tasked me with crafting a tweet, okay? They tasked me with typing up a tweet because obviously my primary job and the primary job of the Department of Justice right now is not to actually like defend the victims or uncover certain truths about Jeffrey Epstein or whatever. It's actually just about preserving the feelings of Donald Trump, my big, beautiful president, who I am almost single-mindedly invested in defending, okay? Oftentimes defending his personal feelings. So what do I do? What do I do as a part of my job at the Department of Justice? Okay. But let me tell you what I do. I tweet the dumbest possible tweet that anyone could have tweeted. Hold on. Let me pull it up real quick. I need to show you my work here. Hold on. Why can't I find the Department of Justice's? Oh my God. I can't even find my account that I'm in control of, that I personally tweeted from, okay? Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here's my tweet. Are you ready for this? And I don't want you guys to get anything. I don't want you to misunderstand anything. I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea, okay? The Department of Justice officially released nearly 30,000 more pages of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. Some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false. And if they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already. Nevertheless, out of our commitment to the law and transparency, the Department of Justice is releasing these documents with the legally required protections for Epstein's victims. I think I did a pretty good job here, right, guys? No one's gonna ask questions, right? I mean, it's like, please stop saying the president is a pedophile, everybody. It's really messed up that this high-profile pedophilia case has Donald Trump and his name and his affiliations written all over it. And I just wanted to give you guys a heads up, okay? I wanted to give you guys a heads up at my new job at the Department of Justice as an intern paralegal. They made me type this up, and I think I did a very good job. Now no one will think, and I mean no one will think Donald Trump is culpable here. He might be a co-conspirator here. I got my inspiration from the Drake defense, which I thought worked really well when Drake and Kendrick were duking it out. If I was a pedophile, I promise you I would have been arrested. Is that good? Was that a good one? Was that a good counter? Everyone, the other one was the famous. The other one was the famous. I am not an unindicted co-conspirator in an international sex trafficking of minors case t-shirt is bringing up a lot of questions that the t-shirt is actually supposed to be answering. It's very strange. It's always good when you do stuff like this. It's always good when you reveal ahead of time. It's always good when you reveal ahead of time that, hey guys, the president's name might be all over, okay? The president's name might be all over, but I need you to understand something. He's not, it's just all fake news. Okay, so now with that information in mind, I hope you guys keep that information in mind, okay? Now, with that information in mind, I need you to understand the Department of Justice was forced to release this information, but, it doesn't mean anything about the president.
Thousands more Jeffrey Epstein files, the most substantial dump of documents so far, including never-before-seen investigative materials. In this email from the day after Epstein was arrested on charges of sex trafficking minors in 2019, an unidentified person at the New York FBI field office already in pursuit of potential
So this specific redaction is one of the most insane ones because it quite literally has the subject co-conspirators, and there are redactions specifically made that lead us to believe that those redactions might have been on co-conspirators, which is something that Julie K. Brown, who's obviously all over the Epstein stuff as an investigative reporter, also pointed to. Why are the names of Epstein's co-conspirators redacted? Like, what the are we doing? What do you mean? You left the subject co-conspirators. The only person whose name we can see here is Wexner, Les Wexner, L Brands, right? Redacted does not need to head out. We made contact with Redacted last night in New York. Contact was made with Redacted. Attempts were made to Redacted and Brunel. Redacted is confirmed to live in New York, but was far away for the holiday weekend. We did not have a good address for Redacted, but attempt was made at residence in New York. Attempts to Maxwell are being made in Boston today. Redacted will be approached in Florida and Redacted in New York, but haven't as of yet. I do not know about Ohio contacting Wexner. What the And then there's also obviously Alex Acosta, this was the meat and potatoes. This is, at least for like someone who has been following, Jeffrey Epstein's finances and his misdealings and his illicit behavior for so many years. This was the thing that I really wanted to find out, right? This is something that I actually brought up to Ro Khanna as well. The plea deal that he got in the 2008 case from now sitting on the board of Newsmax, former Florida prosecutor Alexander Acosta, who became Donald Trump's labor secretary, if you recall. How did Jeffrey Epstein get a sweetheart plea bargain that no sex offender has ever gotten before or after, especially at his level? Okay? Because the thing is, our criminal justice system protects sex offenders in many cases, right? It's not very good at dealing with sex crimes. We already know that. The investigators are not very good with it. The prosecutors are not very good with it notoriously, especially when the offender is actually a very wealthy person, white person. All this stuff is correct, right? But this goes above and beyond, especially with the mountain of evidence that was readily available. And yet they got him dead to rights and they basically let him go. So I was always incredibly confused. Okay. I was very confused about like how this deal came about. Okay. And if you guys recall, Alex Acosta personally stated, Epstein belonged to intelligence was what he had heard, right? There's that question there as well. So, obviously we're going to be digging deep into that side of the story as well. But today's tranche of data was very valuable. But this, in and of itself, once again, speaks to the motivations of the Department of Justice.
Collaborators writing, when you get a chance, can you give me an update on the status of the 10 co-conspirators? In a July memo, the DOJ stating flatly there was not enough evidence to warrant prosecuting any uncharged third parties. Ghislaine Maxwell is the only person to ever be charged as an Epstein co-conspirator.
Also, this was the only time that Elon Musk was actually truthful. Time to drop the really big bomb. At real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. Mark this post for the future. The truth will come out. And then he deleted it because he's a goddamn coward. Well, he deleted it because it's mutually assured pedophilia destruction. So, the one time he was right, he was like, oops, got to put that back. Got to put the toothpaste back in the tube as hastily as possible. Also, there's this side of the story. The Epstein files on the DOJ website allow you to highlight the redacted text, copy it, and paste to another document, which reveals that was what was hidden. You can also press Control F and search for Trump with a space to see his name appear more than 600 times. So what's really interesting about the search function that was initially busted, and then they actually rebuilt the search function, was the fact that if you searched Trump, it gave you no results. However, if you searched Trump with a space, it actually did give you results. Because I think the boomers that tried to hide in the Department of Justice, the boomers that tried to hide like the searchability function for Donald Trump, forgot to put different versions of that, which I think is very funny. Once again, I need you to understand something. As I told you, they're very incompetent. Okay? So W on this administration for being some of the most incompetent people that have ever worked on this position. Okay? You know, it's crunch time, there's a deadline. They all have attention deficit hyperactive disorder. They have imposter syndrome. I don't know, but you know, they're having a real tough time over there at the Department of Justice, the 200 plus lawyers that are tasked with covering up Trump in the shittiest ways possible. And the cover up then becomes a story in and of itself. And it highlights what they're trying to cover up. It shows that their motivation is actually indecent. And yeah, so thank God they eradicated DEI over at the DOJ so that we have these wonderful moments. Okay. And from what I understand, yeah, so when you're searching the results in the files, if you search Trump, you get 0 results. But if you search Trump with a space at the end, you get around 600 results, which tells me that DOJ blocked the search. But they're so old and stupid, they didn't block the search with spaces. So have fun with that while it lasts. And it's kind of funny because just like how video game companies now just like make you pay for an alpha release so you can be a beta tester, like so you can do the game test and you can pay for that privilege of being a game tester. It kind of feels like the administration is utilizing the internet snoopers to make up for all of their personal failures, because every day they just release another tranche of data. Every day people find new information from this tranche of data, and then they literally go back and go, oh my God, we got to fix it. And then they just delete that stuff. Okay? It's awesome. We're getting early access Jeffrey Epstein releases and Donald Trump releases only for the DOJ to basically turn around and make up for their initial incompetence far after everyone has already figured it out. What if they're doing it on purpose to explore the actual truth? I have a bridge that I can sell you. It's actually a very wonderful bridge. I have ownership rights to it. Would you like to purchase the bridge? It's beautiful. It's not in a dire state of disrepair. And for the price of $1 million American, I can sell the bridge to you. It's early access. Okay, I have an early access bridge that I can sell you. Please hit my line. I got you. Okay. Put the bridge in the bag, little bro. Yeah, bridge NFT. So there's that part of the story as well. I will, however, say that given the intensity and given just the sheer volume, the density of all the data that is being dumped in front of everybody, the media is also having a hard time focusing their efforts on some of the more important aspects of this. They're trying. I think they're trying their best, but it's not looking too good. Not looking too good for Donald Trump.
Other emails show prosecutors pressing repeatedly to interview former Prince Andrew, who sent a written statement and never sat down with investigators. Then this email mentioning President Trump from a federal prosecutor in Maxwell's 2020 case, writing up to...
This one is crazy, okay? Once again, another crazy revelation. It's federal prosecutors talking to one another about Epstein's flight records in 2020 going, hey, just so you know, Donald Trump was on the Epstein jets a lot more than we thought he was between 93 and 96, and also was on it On various on various different timelines. He was on it with his family. He was on it with just Jeffrey, and he was on it with Ghislaine Maxwell, and he was on it potentially with co-conspirators alongside Ghislaine Maxwell, or at least eyewitnesses alongside Ghislaine Maxwell. So if there is an investigation into Ghislaine Maxwell, probably Donald Trump is going to be on that investigation as well. Just wanted to put that in front of you, you know?
Obtained flight records reflect that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously has been reported or that we were aware, including during the period we would expect to charge in a Maxwell case.
There is no greater vindication for the American left that has time and time again said that devoid of party affiliation is utterly irrelevant. These guys are tasked first and foremost with protecting every wealthy, potentially pedophilic person. This is what we've been saying for years and years. I used to always joke and say, you know, there's uniparty consensus when it comes to certain things: foreign policy, defending Israel, and tax cuts and deregulation, and also protecting pedophiles and pedophilia of the elite. And it turns out this is yet another moment of vindication for the left that has said that. This is uniparty. Doesn't matter if it's Brandon's DOJ, doesn't matter if it's Trump's DOJ. They did not pursue these leads, and they let these leads die out. In some instances, quite literally die out, but we'll get there.
Trump and Epstein had a decades-long friendship, but a falling out in the early 2000s after Trump says Epstein stole Mar-a-Lago employees. Also in the thousands of documents, photos of an Austrian passport with Epstein's picture, but
and it says his place of residence is Saudi Arabia.
bearing the alias Marius Fortelny. The reams of newly released records coming as the DOJ is facing heat from bipartisan lawmakers.
Yeah, what's he doing? What's he doing in Saudi Arabia, bro? Wow. Interesting. Saudi Arabia, you say? Yeah, I am a spy for Israel, and this is my passport. I am an artist from Israel. Yeah, very interesting. Oh, I guess he must have been in the pocket of the Gulf states, which is totally separate from Israel and totally separate from America.
And Epstein survivors after the department missed last Friday's legal deadline to release all of its Epstein files. President Trump yesterday asked about the dozens of photos released in previous document dumps, including at least one featuring Trump himself and several of former President Bill Clinton. Both have denied knowledge of Epstein's crimes.
A lot of people are very angry that pictures are being released of other people that really had nothing to do with Epstein, but they're in a picture with him because he was at a party.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was a Saudi spy as well. I mean, he was deeply connected to UAE, even more so than Saudi Arabia. But let's be real. All of these Gulf states are additional vassals for American empire. Okay? That's it. Like there is some distribution of power there. There's some separation of power there. There's a little bit of if you look at Qatar, for example, Qatar and Turkey are secondary in terms of their contributions to America's interests, whereas like Saudi Arabia and the UAE are far, far more connected to both Israel and the United States of America, even though Qatar obviously is as well. That's where U.S. CENTCOM is, and Turkey is a NATO country. So there is varying degrees of involvement. But if you see like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, like all of the Abraham Accords countries, for example, like the big ones, just know that it is most likely directly connected to Israel as well. I spent a year in Qatar. It's basically an American colony. It was nuts. I mean, a lot of the Gulf states are like that. The reason why I say like there is a separation there with Qatar is because while it does play the role of an American vassal, it still has like it's basically designed in a way where it's supposed to be like almost like a neutral territory, so that you can have like the Hamas leadership live on Qatari soil, for example, so that they can do these they can do these like negotiations and whatnot in places like Qatar. So there's a little bit more allowance for their aligned vassals, but also all these countries spy on each other, including the Mossad and CIA. Their intelligence agencies don't always get along. No, absolutely. But I do think that in the case of Jeffrey Epstein, he is the connective tissue, because while these intelligence agencies don't always get along, there are plenty that actually do get along, and there are plenty of agents that work for both at times, at different times. Like you say, CIA and the Mossad famously hate each other, sure, but there are also people who have worked both for the CIA as an asset or directly, and also Mossad as well. So, you know, I think Jeffrey Epstein would probably be considered as one of those guys that did both. You know, American citizen, deeply embedded in the American financial elite, that had obvious ties, deep ties to Israeli leadership and also Western leaders in general, with a Austrian passport that had a Saudi place of residence. Probably just a guy who really loves pedophilia personally. That's probably what it is, guys. Nothing to see here. Jeffrey Epstein, the financier. Nothing to see here, okay? Who amongst us doesn't have an Austrian passport with a totally different name with a Saudi place of residence? I don't understand. Like, what? Guys, please stop looking. Please stop looking into this, okay? It's totally normal. I'm Ezra Klein, and I want to say Jeffrey Epstein was doing pedophilia the right way, okay? I'm Ezra Klein for the New York Times, and today I'm going to tell you, was Jeffrey Epstein a prolific sex criminal? Yes. Was Jeffrey Epstein also deeply embedded in the financial elite and deeply entangled with numerous world leaders? Also, yes. I also happen to believe that this was totally separate, okay? This was totally separate from one another. Please stop investigating the connective tissue further, okay? The funniest way that Israel could try, like Zionists could try and do Hasbara on the Epstein stuff now, would be to claim that Jeffrey Epstein actually reverted to Islam and he got the Saudi place of residence because he was doing the Hajj or something. You know what I mean? I know for a fact there's I'm speculating, but I assume there's some Unit 8200 guys right now going, oh, why couldn't it be Qatar? God damn it. Why did it have to be Saudi Arabia? Why did it have to be Saudi Arabia? If we could just get him on something that's related to Qatar, we can just keep saying like, oh, you see, Jeffrey Epstein, agent of Qatar, like Tucker Carlson. Did you see the IDF uniform on a jar on the island? Yes, that stuff is nothing. That's irrelevant. Of course, he also has a photo on the Lolita Express wearing an IDF sweater. That is not like he wasn't wearing it to be like, hey, look at me, I'm a member of the IDF. He was wearing it because a lot of those dudes just, they love Israel. They think the IDF is cool. That's not, I don't think that's evidence. It's just evidence that, yeah, he's a huge Israel dick rider, certainly. Yeah, the IDF shirt costs $5 and can be bought anywhere. It's like saying, hey, did you see Jeffrey Epstein wearing the PLA hat or something? Like, yeah, okay, I did. It's not, he had a Harvard sweatshirt too. That doesn't mean he went to Harvard.
And you ruin the reputation of somebody.
Oh, this was also a beautiful moment. Hey, guys, in a beautiful moment of elite pedophilic unity, Donald Trump yesterday came out amidst all of the announcements that he was making about how they're making new boats and all this shit, okay? He turned around and said, oh, I love Bill Clinton. Yeah, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff got him defending Bill Clinton, okay? My friend Bill was good friends with him for many years, unfairly being yelled at right now. Who amongst us has not found themselves innocently on the private jet of a known international pedophile? Every one of us has accidentally slipped and fell into the jet of a known pedophile sex trafficker. Look away. Could have happened to anybody. And it's like one of those moments where it's like, no, it could not have happened to anybody. it can only happen to a very, very small number of people, yourself included. It's not like a normal thing at all. Very strange that you're saying this is, I just, who amongst us, right? Okay, in his defense, it's hard to hate someone who shares your interests. True. Also, once again, both of these guys are probably, not in the right headspace right now. One of their besties died a couple years ago, but he was such an impactful figure in their lives that, they're sad. They're still recovering from the sadness that they feel in their hearts. Here it is. Here's Donald Trump in his glory. I think it's terrible. I like Bill Clinton.
I think it's terrible. Look, I like Bill Clinton. I've always gotten along with Bill Clinton. I've been nice to him. He's been nice to me. We've always gotten along. Respect him. I hate to see photos come out of him.
He's got a great dick game. Bubba, many of you don't know this. I've heard. I don't know this personally. I've heard he's got a great dick game. I don't know. Many people were saying it. That's right. Not me. I don't know. Many people are saying I hate Hillary more because she took Bubba away from me. Lock her up so I can have Bubba all to myself. That's why I say lock her up. A lot of people thought I hate Hillary for the emails. Meanwhile, I just wanted to have Bill all to myself.
But this is what the Democrats, mostly Democrats, and a couple of bad Republicans are asking for. So they're giving their photos of me, too. Everybody was friendly with this guy. I think it's terrible. Look.
Well, we learned about Biden's dick game from his wife, and now we're learning about Clinton's dick game from Trump. Yeah, work wife. What? It's the same shit, You got your wife, and then you got your work wife. Everybody knows how this works. One could assume Bubba and Trump were in a work wife style situation, okay? But yeah, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff is finally uniting the American political landscape. We have been divided for far too long, folks. This is what Nancy Pelosi truly wanted when she said, we want to unite. We want to get back to bipartisanship. Turns out we're back to bipartisanship, okay? Our pedophilic elite are united on, I guess, defending the interests of other pedophilic elite and themselves, preserving their own personal reputations. Isn't that wonderful? Don't you love to see that, folks? I personally do. Love that the divisive political landscape is finally coming to a halt. Okay. Anyway, why Pam Bondi defending this? I wonder why Pam Bondi would be defending this. I don't know. Maybe because her primary responsibility and the reason why she was even elected or appointed to this position. Sorry, not elected. Obviously not. The reason why she was appointed to this position was to defend Donald Trump. And that requires her to sometimes defend Donald Trump's deep, close, personal best friendship with known international sex trafficker of minors, Jeffrey Epstein. That was part of the reason why Pam Bondi and Kash Patel on numerous occasions lied to the American public when they said, oh, Jeffrey Epstein, he was just doing this for himself. 1,200 plus victims just for himself, just for his own personal benefit. You guys, stop looking into this, okay? Stop looking into the Epstein stuff. Come on, please, let's move on.
Of former President Bill Clinton. Both have denied knowledge of Epstein's crimes.
A lot of people are very angry that pictures are being released of other people that really had nothing to do with Epstein, but they're in a picture with him because he was at a party.
Yeah.
And you ruin a reputation of somebody. So a lot of people are very angry.
Yeah, these guys hate it. These guys hate the besmirching of the reputation of wonderful people like this. I can't believe it. How dare you besmirch the reputation of all these elites that I spent years and years leaning into QAnon pedophilia conspiracies on. Now that it turns out I was one of the pedophilic elite, potentially, allegedly, all of a sudden, why are you besmirching the reputation of these big, beautiful people?
This continues.
In a statement yesterday, a Clinton spokesperson accusing the DOJ of using, quote, selective releases of Epstein documents to imply wrongdoing where there isn't, and challenging the department to immediately release any remaining materials mentioning or showing Bill Clinton in these files. Now, what's been released so far only represents a fraction of the hundreds of thousands of Epstein files that the DOJ has. They've promised to put out more in the coming days and weeks, Janae.
I think one of the interesting parts about this also is like
The rest.
when when Donald Trump chirps about this, he is obviously physically incapable of talking about this in any way, shape, or form that reads as a person invested in uncovering these truths that many people want to find. He just comes across like a guy who's trying to do ass covering, right? So when he says stuff like this, he's like, oh, the American people, they're very saddened. They're very angry. It's like, yeah, they are, except they're angry at you as well as everybody else that was, propping up Jeffrey Epstein for many, many years. You're not even doing a good enough job of like communicating your involvement here or what your DOJ is doing. And it's so obvious that like a narcissistic child caught with his hands in the cookie jar, you're just, trying to shift the attention to everything else. And I just don't think that it's going to work. I don't think that the way he's communicating here is going to cause people to go, you know what? I agree with the president. I also think it's really f***ed up that they're besmirching the reputation of David Brooks and Google CEO Sergey Brin. Yeah. I'm a diehard Republican, triple voter for MAGA, very invested in this, deep state pedophilia conspiracy. And now that there's like hard evidence coming out that, a lot of very wealthy people are involved, including my favorite president, I'm going to now come to his and all of the, all the defense of people like Bill Gates. What do you think is going to happen?
Asking me questions about Jeffrey Epstein. I thought that was finished.
That's also partially. Here's the other thing. Okay, a lot of the MAGA Twitter accounts that are trying to desperately find a way to message out of this when Donald Trump is basically going on stage every day and communicating that he may or may not be a pedophile, or at least like very, very connected to Jeffrey Epstein, or at the very least defending the interests of others who were co-conspirators. They try to go on the timeline and say like, bet you libtards are mad about Bill Clinton being outed. And it's like, no, because even liberals that love Kamala Harris or love Joe Biden or love Barack Obama, even liberals don't have the same association or love for Bill Clinton as you have for Donald Trump. So no, I haven't seen a lot of liberals turn around and talk about how Bill Clinton is innocent, as a matter of fact. No, many people are just like, yeah, no, lock them all up. Okay? There is no like, maybe some pedophilia is okay if it's people that are ostensibly on our side doing it. Like that's a Republican thing, I think. And it's not even like the entire Republican base that's doing this, but there are some who are trying to. Okay? But yeah, no, lock them all up. I don't give a shit. What do you mean? And it's very interesting because like you do see this like you see this cult style defense from a lot of these people, right? Where they're so aggressively trying to communicate this partisan narrative that they suspect the other side of having. No one is doing that. No one's doing that at all. I took my Bill Clinton flag down yesterday and my Bill bumper stickers too.
It's the story he can't shake. Donald Trump was here to do what he likes doing, branding something with his name, this time a new class of Navy battleship. But his administration is still under fire over its handling of the Epstein files and his own relationship with the late convicted sex offender.
Everybody was friendly with this guy, either friendly or not friendly, but he was around. He was all over Palm Beach and other places. The head of Harvard was his best friend, Larry Summers. And Bill Clinton was a friend of his, but everybody was. I actually threw him out.
Everybody was. Who wasn't friends with this guy? It's like, yeah, that's the problem, brother. when Donald Trump says everybody was friends with this guy, I don't think he understands how that reads to normal people, okay? Normal people that hear that don't go, oh, that makes sense. I mean, come on, you have to obviously dip into the pedophilia pool a little bit. Everybody else is doing it. You just don't want to feel left out. No, they think, yeah, that's what we've been saying, and that's what the problem is. Okay? I love when he is so slammed in his own echo chamber of isolated elites that he just comes out and says dumb shit like this, where he's like, come on, who wasn't friends with this guy? Come on, right? Like, you guys were, right? And it's just like, no, actually, that's insane. And that's kind of what we were suspecting all along, that yes, you guys are also all of the financial elite and people in higher levels of government are involved in this massive conspiracy potentially, right? It's kind of the whole point. It's kind of the thing that people were suspecting and were very upset about.
Mar-a-Lago.
Trump may have cut off relations with Epstein, but that was after years of friendship. And in one document among thousands more released today, a note from a New York assistant attorney revealing that Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously has been reported. He flew at least 8 times on the plane between 1993 and 1996. On one flight, there was Epstein, Trump, and a 20-year-old. And on 2 other flights, 2 of the passengers were women who would be possible witnesses in the Ghislaine Maxwell case. And then there is this, a letter Epstein allegedly wrote in August 2019 from his jail cell.
So this letter is most likely not written by Jeffrey Epstein, by the way. There is a lot of... when I first saw this, I thought, if this letter is real and it was written by Jeffrey Epstein, this is one of the first instances of I would say pretty solid evidence, if it was written by him. One of the first instances of pretty solid evidence that he might have actually had suicidal ideation, right? Because that was the argument that people were making, like, oh, he just got like caught and he got really sad and he killed himself, right? Like, that was the argument that people were making. And I had yet to see enough evidence of Jeffrey Epstein actually, doing the deed. And there is plenty of evidence that someone might have tried to or successfully assassinated him, right? The thing is, when you look at this Jeffrey Epstein letter to, and Julie Brown also had a similar take on this. But when you look at this newly leaked Epstein letter, completely implicates Donald Trump, because a lot of people like Harry Sasson and many other liberals are just like diving into this instantly, okay? Because they think, oh, this makes Trump look bad, not realizing that this actually kind of invalidates the notion that Jeffrey Epstein might have been killed. Not even kind of, like directly invalidates the idea that Jeffrey Epstein was most likely killed in a federal prison under the watchful eye of Donald Trump under his administration, except it doesn't make a lot of sense because, as Julie K. Brown also points out, Jeffrey Epstein didn't know how to spell. We know that already. And this is not similar to his handwriting either. And it's not even similar to the way Jeffrey Epstein wrote. Like the way he talked, the way he wrote, and the way he typed shit. So remember, just like with the 3D, the shitty CGI 3D render of Jeffrey Epstein killing himself in a cell was information that was added on. Information that was added on from some random person that had actually emailed someone at the FBI at a certain point. There are a lot of things that they are uncovering in the Epstein files that might not reach the standard of like hard evidence. Okay, there's going to be a lot of stuff in there, including even one of the personal accounts of a potential victim that died. Right, that was like I believe that was like a taxi driver that recounted what he had heard about someone who was suspected to be a victim of Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. Like, there is always going to be stuff in there. There's always going to be stuff in there that like don't make a lot of sense or might not actually reach the standard of like hard evidence, right? So you have to parse through that stuff carefully and apply scrutiny, even if it looks too good. Like even if it actually seems even if it actually seems to implicate Donald Trump in a potential pedophilic conspiracy, you shouldn't automatically dive into that stuff. If this wasn't written by Epstein, it would be evidence of an anti-Trump deep state. Otherwise, it being a fake doesn't make sense. No, it might not be a fake. It might just be like, there are a lot of weirdos that just send quote unquote information. Just like, that's the reason why I gave you the example of like the CGI render. Like there was a guy who was like a weirdo who sent this CGI render of Jeffrey Epstein killing himself in his jail cell. And that was obviously a part of, that was a part of the data that they compiled because they're compiling everything. So this could have just been like a random person who wrote this letter and made it seem like it was being written from Jeffrey Epstein to Nassar, right? The FBI, I don't believe, did a analysis on, or I don't think we have full information on the whether or not this was verified to be an authentic document from Jeffrey Epstein. But in any case, yeah, there's this alleged letter that Jeffrey Epstein sent to Larry Nassar days before he died. Our president shares our love of young nubile girls. When a young beauty walked by, he loved the grab snatch, whereas we ended up snatching grub in the mess halls of the system. Life is unfair. Making it seem as though Jeffrey Epstein, prior to killing himself, sent this letter. If it's not fake, what if taking the short route home means ratting on Trump and the others to go home? That would also explain the second paragraph. Last spam, I promise. Yeah, there's also that too. But Julie K. Brown also thinks this is suspect, largely because Jeffrey Epstein didn't know how to spell. It doesn't seem to fit with the way he wrote either. Plus, it really looks like a woman's handwriting. But there's a postmark. Like I was very suspicious about this letter, and there is definitely enough. There's definitely enough inconsistencies in this letter to call into question its veracity, its validity. Be careful with the Epstein letter written to Larry Nassar. It's post-stamped 13 of August 2019, 3 days after Epstein died. It has a stamp of Nova 220, which means it was processed by a North Virginia mail facility, not where Nassar or Epstein were at the time. It's not to say that these are impossible circumstances, but worth intense scrutiny, especially given the claims within the note. I'm sure we will learn more in the coming days, but it's worth caution. Below is a note, says CoffeeZilla, who is now also, getting promoted by Dropsite as well, which I think is very cool. Online guide to the North Virginia mail marking shows the Nova 220 stamp that almost looks identical to the one in the Epstein-Nassar supposed letter. Current evidence suggests this note/card is fake in the sense that it was likely written by someone else. Facts on this will evolve over time, withholding final judgment until we see the forensic handwriting analysis as a result. Check logs. See the letter here? It has the evidence label and the envelope. Oh, this is a Gmail, by the way. They basically recreated all the Epstein documents and all the Epstein emails in a way that is like easier to search and in a way that makes you go through it as though like Jeffrey Epstein is the one who's like typing all the emails. If you go here on gmail.world, this basically turns it into, you are logged in as Jeffrey Epstein on the jevacation@gmail.com. These are real emails released by Congress. Explore by name, contribute to the star list. So, there is a lot of stuff, including like all the people that he talked to. Yeah, no, it's a really, really good tool for the record. You can see his Amazon orders on the fake Amazon website that they recreated as well. This is because there's so much information. They basically mirrored his email account. So, yeah, you can see his Spotify playlist. You can see his Amazon purchases. By they, you mean people online, not the government, right? No, this is all of the. This is just created to make it easier to browse through. What is this? Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, here's the letter. From allegedly from the Manhattan. This is a third party creating a portal to view the government's released documents in. Yes. Didn't realize CoffeeZilla was this credible. Good for him. No, he is the GOAT. Listen, I've been a big booster of CoffeeZilla for a reason. He's been very, very good on not just this, but also on like a lot of the crypto stuff. He's been great in general.
And sent to Larry Nassar, another convicted paedophile. Epstein writes, our president also shares our love of young nubile girls. When a young beauty walked by, he loved to grab.
Yeah, he goes, as you know by now, I have taken the short route home. Good luck. We shared one thing, ... Our love. And what is this? And what? Like, it's just strange and caring for young ladies. Like, it's strange for Jeffrey Epstein to straight up admitting to being a pedophile and sending a postcard to another known convicted pedophile, like a very famous known convicted pedophile, to be like, hey, as you know, we both love pedophilia. Like, that's an insane thing for someone to do, especially when there is a case. There is already, like, he was in prison and there was an active investigation and a court case coming up, and he's like mass surveilled, and he just like writes it out in this private correspondence. There is definitely some, this is definitely worthy of scrutiny. Okay. There's also the other side of this. There's also the other side of the story that I think the whole like, oh, Donald Trump also grabbed him by the pussy. If you recall, like bringing up something that's like very famous, famously known about Donald Trump to tie himself back to, or to tie Trump back to pedophilia in that same vein. I feel like if this is the guy who knows where the bodies are buried, if this is the guy who knows all of these like deeply, who knows all of the hidden secrets, the hidden truths of like elite pedophiles, I doubt he would just simply point to something that everybody knows like this. Okay? Like, it just doesn't make, I don't know, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. This postcard seems like an intentionally fake piece of evidence to call into question any other Trump evidence. Yeah. I don't know. I just find it very strange. There's something about it that rubs me the wrong way.
Snatch. Today, the Department of Justice said,
some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false.
Another document today revealed a rape allegation against Trump submitted to the FBI in October 2020. But the president has never been formally accused of any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein by law enforcement, and he's always denied he knew about Epstein's crimes. One individual who has stood accused, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who lost his royal titles because of his friendship with Epstein. The late Virginia Roberts Giuffre, a confirmed victim of Epstein.
Yeah, I don't think he was, I don't think he lost his titles because of his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. I think it went a little bit beyond that, don't you think? Potentially. Both for Prince Andrew and for Lord Mountbatten.
Accused Andrew of raping her 3 times, something he has always strenuously denied.
Oh no, I was thinking of the other, this Andrew definitely. I was thinking of the other, the British government guy.
Has stood accused, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who lost his royal titles because of his friendship with Epstein. The late Virginia Roberts Giuffre, a confirmed victim of Epstein, accused Andrew of raping her 3 times, something he has always strenuously denied. But the new
Peter
documents
Mandelson,
reveal
yeah.
that the Department of Justice in 2020 requested assistance from the UK government to compel Andrew to sit for questioning, and that there was information suggesting he had...
One of the funniest moments in PR history is when, once again, this is a classic. This is a classic historic relic, artifact, whatever. But when he did the interview, the famous interview where he's like, "Well, I'm incapable of sweating, you see." And also famously, I was not wearing my pedophilia shirt on the day that you're accusing me of being a pedophile.
Acknowledged that Ghislaine Maxwell recruited females to engage in sex acts with Epstein and other men. In the latest documents, emails between Maxwell and someone called the Invisible Man, who signs off AXXX. In August 2001, he writes, "I'm up here at Balmoral summer camp for the royal family." He then says, "How's LA? Have you found me some new inappropriate friends?" Maxwell replies, "I've only been able to find appropriate friends." The so-called Invisible Man responds, distraught. While Andrew has always denied any wrongdoing and has not commented on these new documents, the new...
I'm glad that they found a little bit of OPSEC, you know, a little bit of OPSEC. And by that, I mean none at all, where they're very clearly talking about like underage girls versus, you know, girls of age. Very cool. Very cool. Have you found me some new inappropriate friends? I'm asking for underage girls. Let me know when you're coming over, as I'm free from the 25th of August until the 2nd September and want to go somewhere hot and sunny with some fun people before having to put my nose firmly to the grindstone for the fall. Any ideas? Gratefully received. See ya, A. Where's the OPSEC, dude? A. I wonder who A is. Yes, my princely duties. Oh, I do declare, quite dastardly and difficult my life has been so far. Quite difficult. I hate being a prince and having to put my nose through the stone and need a bit of respite from the work I'm doing as a prince by diving into pedophilia.
appropriate friends.
And then Ghislaine Maxwell straight up, sorry to disappoint you. However, truth must be told, I've only been able to find appropriate friends. Only overage girls for you, I guess. Only girls over the age of 18, Prince Andrew. Sorry.
I've only been able to find...
You probably would... Distraught! You probably wouldn't know, but I lost my valet on Thursday. My valet on Thursday. He died in his sleep. He had been with me since I was 2. I'm a little off balance, as not only has my office been restructured, I have left the RN, and now my whole life is in turmoil, as I have no one to look after me. Oh my God, they are literally babies, bro. He said he's distraught that he doesn't have underage victims that he can rape, and also distraught because his butler died. And now he has no one to look after him. Like, he's not even saying he's sad because a person that he's known, a person that took care of him since he was 2, just passed away. He's sad because he has no one to look after him. He was a real rock and almost a part of the family. Not fully, of course, because he was not a royal like me. Lord Prince Andrew Mountbatten. My servant died. I am distraught. I need a little bit of pedophilia to help me get along in these trying times. Yeah, this is Prince Andrew. If you have any good ideas as to how to get my mind back on track, I'd be grateful for advice. See you real soon. I hope if you are coming over.
While Andrew has always denied any wrongdoing and has not commented on these new documents, the new files provide yet further insight into the actions of Epstein and Maxwell. And yet many Democrats in Congress, as well as victims, have criticized the administration for the drip of files, with one Epstein survivor today calling for resignations and impeachments.
I am no longer supporting this administration. I redact any support I've ever given to him, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel. I am so disgusted with this administration. I think that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel both need to resign. And I would love to see number 47 get impeached over this.
The Democrats accused the Trump administration of
I'm not going to say anything. These are victims, okay? They're, you know, all the victims that voted for Donald Trump because they were like, oh, Donald Trump is going to like crack this case. Donald Trump is going to uncover the deep state pedophilia. All the people that are experiencing buyer's remorse, realizing that, you know, maybe Donald Trump is not actually cracking the case with this, you know, Jeffrey Epstein pedophilia stuff. They are, you know, it's fine. What are you going to do? I'm glad that they at least like are pulling the ripcord.
selectively publishing certain material, notably a tranche of photos of Bill Clinton in the initial release of documents. The former president has called for all files relating to him to be published and questioned why that had not yet happened. Trump himself had this to say about one of his predecessors.
I like Bill Clinton. I've always gotten along with Bill Clinton. I've been nice to him. He's been nice to me. We've always gotten along. Respect him. I hate to see photos come out of him, but this is what the Democrats, mostly Democrats, and a couple of bad Republicans are asking for.
But Trump knows more people than that are asking for these documents. Not just Epstein's victims, but many among his MAGA base, who are now questioning the president's connection to this ongoing scandal.
The Justice Department released a
letter signed by Jay Epstein and Larry Nassar cites our president. Oh, there was also this part that I thought was insane, which was redacted, and it should have never been redacted. Investigators described finding a photo of Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell on Steve Bannon's phone during the We Build the Wall investigation. This and other details from the latest Epstein files release. And they redacted the photo. And it's like, we know the photo is just Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell. Why would you redact that photo? Neither of them are victims. This was a part of the separate investigation that was conducted into Steve Bannon, where they looked through his phone. They found this stuff. And then because it was tying Trump to Ghislaine Maxwell, when the Ghislaine Maxwell investigation was being conducted, which is obviously going to be a part of the data that is in the Jeffrey Epstein files as well, there's just like, yeah, here it is. Interesting. When prosecutors reviewed Steve Bannon's iPhone as a part of their We Build the Wall prosecution against him, they found a lot of text messages between him and Jeffrey Epstein, including photos of Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump. I hope you're well. I'm helping out with the responsiveness review for WBTW, and we've been looking through Steve Bannon's iPhone 7 on Celebrite. As I was going through the images from that phone, I found an image of Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell on Bannon's phone. See screenshot from Celebrite attached. They redacted the screenshot. I discussed with Sonny, and we wanted to flag this for you in case it was of any importance, since you are on both cases. Please let me know if you'd like anything further done with this. Thanks so much. Hi, I wanted to let you know that there are a number of text messages between Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein on Bannon's iPhone 7. They aren't responsive to our warrant. And once again, and I've talked about this already over and over again, and I even brought it up with Rokana, Steve Bannon filmed 15 hours of interviews with pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The two texted about using an obscure legal maneuver. The maneuver could explain why the footage hasn't seen the light of day. Remember, this is insane. Yeah, here it is. Why is this redacted? Feds flag photo of Steve Bannon and Ghislaine Maxwell that was found on Bannon's phone in 2021. Not clear when the photo was taken, and the photo itself is redacted, which it shouldn't be. iPhone 7 came out in 2016, by the way. Yeah, except he could be using an older iPhone. That doesn't mean that the timeline is from 2016. We won't know. We won't know until, because this is a newer investigation, and I think he still had an iPhone 7 at the time when they were investigating him. It's Steve Bannon, right? So, and it's actually crazy that while this is happening, Steve Bannon is like speaking at Turning Point USA, for example. Just something to consider here. Like, who is deeply connected and associated with Jeffrey Epstein and still gets to operate within regular media. Okay? Yeah, TPUSA, more like CPUSA. And the real reason for Steve Bannon connecting with Jeffrey Epstein, which he denies to this day, but we know to be true, is because he was actually working on Jeffrey Epstein's PR. Okay? Steve Bannon, Trump loyalist Steve Bannon, opportunist white supremacist Steve Bannon, was working with Jeffrey Epstein, and that's the reason why he has 15 hours of tapes of them going back and forth And we will never actually find, we most likely will never see those tapes. But the real reason why they did this, the real reason why Steve Bannon did this, was because he was actually trying to do PR or Steve Bannon was working with Jeffrey Epstein in figuring out ways of manipulating the media and preparing him for a deposition for this upcoming second Jeffrey Epstein trial. You're skipping a huge story here. We've been covering the 13-year-old girl who contacted the FBI about being assaulted on a yacht in Trump's presence and her baby was killed. No, I haven't seen this part yet, but we'll get into it as well. I mean, there are so many instances where the FBI, quote unquote, dropped the ball on a lot of Epstein allegations, right? The most famous one being in 1996, I believe. So that's the one they mentioned in the news clip. An allegation was brought in 2020. Yeah, there's a couple allegations in 2020, but some of that might actually be some of that might be fake tips, because stuff like that is still going to be in the emails or in the investigation, because they receive a shit ton of emails. So just remember that. I haven't looked into every single one of these allegations, but some of them might not be as credible.
New batch of documents in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, including chilling new evidence that some viewers may find disturbing. This is a jailhouse letter, apparently written by a Jeffrey Epstein. It says J. Epstein, and it was sent to another infamous sex offender. That would be Larry Nassar. The letter appears to include a reference to President Trump. We should note President Trump is not accused of any criminal wrongdoing. And I just spoke to a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse, Haley Robeson, a short time ago. Here's what she said. And DOJ says some of these things are salacious and there's no truth behind it. That's the statement it just released.
You made the jokes about people who support believing Pizzagate and Wayfair were wrong because Jeffrey Epstein was open and blunt about what he did, but you don't believe the postcard because Jeffrey Epstein is too open and blunt. Yeah, it's not a private email that he's sending to another friend. Okay, this is a random pedophile, a random high-profile pedophile that he sent a postcard to from prison when he's in the midst of a heated court battle and an investigation into his pedophilia and sex crimes. There's a difference between sending emails that he never thought would get uncovered, where he's where Prince Andrew is literally sending an email to Ghislaine Maxwell being like, oh, can you give me underage minors to rape, versus a postcard during a literal investigation into his sex crimes. But more importantly than all of that, this is an obvious fake, says Alex Pfeiffer, Republican communication consultant, for the record. So, be suspicious of his interest as well, but interest in this as well. But the postmark on the envelope is Virginia, not New York, where Epstein was jailed. It indicates the envelope was processed 3 days after his death in August 2019. The return address on the envelope misidentifies the jail where Epstein being held and does not include his inmate number, which the Bureau of Prisons Policy Manual requires to be included in the outgoing mail. There's also additional suspicion on the letter as well, specifically because of the handwriting and the way that he, he is the most dyslexic man on the planet. Okay, I've read so many emails at this point and so many things that Jeffrey Epstein has written at this point that it's just instantly when I see the correspondence, it's just it doesn't. I'm just saying there is a good deal in there to be. There's a good deal in there to scrutinize.
But what do you think about the mention of Trump in that letter and what it said?
I think it's very apparent in that specific letter that was just publicized from the Epstein files. I think it's very apparent that there are a group of men that enjoy the company of young women and children. And I think that letter emphasizes that he knew what was going on. And that complicity is enough for me to know you have no business being in the position of power.
Strong words there from Haley.
I do love seeing, I do love tuning randomly throughout the day, as I will continue to do so, to Fox News to see what they're covering when all this stuff is happening. And it seems
federal security guarantees, the U.S. specific security guarantees.
Fox News, I suspect, Fox News is going to be covering anything but the Epstein stuff today. And we'll just go back and forth to see, like, you know, what they're up to throughout the day. Sometimes it's really funny. It'll be like rats fighting over a pizza went viral, you know? At least this time, this is like a relevant news story. I like that the Jeffrey Epstein files and Trump's association and the Department of Justice's mishandling of the redactions is so severe that it's caused Fox News to cover real news for once. Okay? Yeah, it's this. Tug of war. CNN Epstein files, ABC Epstein files, NBC Epstein files, Fox News. Tug of war. Two rats engaged in a dramatic 3-minute battle over half a bagel at the New York City subway station. This reminds me of, like, this is basically like Barry Weiss being like, hey, guys, you know, I know you did this investigative report on Trump sending random people to a rape and torture prison in El Salvador. But honestly, I think we need more Erica Kirk. OK, we did such a good job with the Erica Kirk town hall. We need more of we need more of that. But yeah, now the Epstein files are so damning that they got Fox News covering real news, man. That's got to be crazy for all the Fox News watchers that are tuning in to be like, okay, I want to get my daily dose of Fox News. And then they tune in and they're like, wait a minute, what? It don't make no sense. But yeah, let's get back to it.
Ropes, and let's go live now to CNN senior reporter Marshall Cohen join us here in the Situation Room. So walk us through that letter. What did it actually say, Marshall?
Yeah, Pam. So let's be really clear about what we know and what we don't know. We have actually been aware for a couple years that Epstein tried to send a letter, or maybe did send a letter, to Nasser from prison. That's been out there. We have never seen it before, and it apparently was in the drop today from the Justice Department. It was written to LN, Larry Nasser, on the envelope, and it was signed by J. Epstein. And it was postmarked just a couple days after Epstein's suicide. No conspiracy there. It's not too crazy to think that prison officials will need to look at stuff before it goes out in the mail. So it's dated just a few days after that suicide, and I will read for you what it said. And as you mentioned, Pam, it's kind of disturbing. This is the letter. Quote, "As you know by now, I have taken the short route home. Good luck. We shared one thing, our love and caring for young ladies and the hope that they'd reach their full potential. Our president also shares our love of young nubile girls," which is obviously the disgusting words of one sexual predator to another. But I should make clear that Donald Trump has never been accused of any sexual wrongdoing by law enforcement, and obviously he's never been charged with any of these Epstein-related crimes.
And so the short route home reference, do we think that's him talking about dying by suicide? Because it came out a few days after,
The
right?
timeline would seem to suggest so.
Yeah. We're also seeing this 2021 Mar-a-Lago subpoena relating to the Ghislaine Maxwell case. This is new, right? Do we not know about the subpoena to Mar-a-Lago?
I didn't know about it. And
okay.
I don't
Well, Marshall Cohen, you've been all over this story.
I don't think it was out there before. Our colleague Michael Williams found it this morning in the batch of 30,000 documents.
Fix the fucking audio, CNN. God damn it.
A subpoena sent by the Justice Department to Mar-a-Lago October 2021, just a few weeks before the start of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. It is redacted, but it is clear through the redactions that they were looking for employment records about someone. We don't know who. But I should point out that we do know that there was one very well-known person that did work.
Bro, this is not even audio pervertry. I'm sorry. This is like perfectly valid. Perhaps the most valid demand to make of a multi-billion-dollar major media company uploading their live broadcast onto YouTube. I don't understand how they still this up.
At Mar-a-Lago when it was actually recruited to work for Epstein, and that was Virginia Giuffre, who was one of Epstein's victims. Not sure if the subpoena's about her, but there's been a lot of talk about her being at both Mar-a-Lago and Epstein's estate, and she died by suicide earlier this year.
Yeah, very sad. How is the DOJ responding to all of these revelations? Because it put out a statement with this batch, but not the first one.
They
right?
went on the offensive this morning and on offense to defend Donald Trump. Let me read for you what they put out in a tweet this morning as they rolled out this batch of tens of thousands of files. They said some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, these claims are unfounded and false. If they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against Trump already. So framing the entire conversation right off the bat to say, if you see stuff about Trump, don't believe it. But as the woman you just spoke to in the last hour made clear, there's a lot of stuff in here that has been vetted and verified. Maxwell was convicted. Epstein, before he was charged with the federal case, he had been convicted in a state case 20 years earlier. So, the Justice Department sort of massaging the situation here, trying to defend Trump. But as we've seen, there's a lot of stuff in here that has been verified and has vindicated.
Yeah. Also, obviously, when they said this, as I called it out earlier before we started the entire Epstein release, bizarre defensive post from DOJ saying if allegations of Trump had any credibility, they would have been weaponized against them. But if they had credibility, then pursuing them by definition wouldn't be weaponization, and that doesn't even make sense, right? That doesn't make sense at all. Oh, if if I was a pedophile, I promise you I would have been arrested, is not exactly a solid line of defense, man. It's just not. Very, very dumb shit happening here. Fox News, accidentally tuning into Fox News. Mamdani responds to accusation of anti-Semitism within transition team. Oh, I'm glad that once again, Fox News is on the ball, baby. They're doing the most important news stories of the day. Okay, let's continue.
All right, Marshall Cohen, thank you as always. I know you and the team have a lot of work going through these documents.
Want to bring in Nick Ackerman.
Lady resigned already for tweets from 2011. Fox News supposedly hates cancel culture, right? Remember that.
And former Assistant Special Watergate Prosecutor. He joins us by phone. So, Nick, a letter like that from Jeffrey Epstein in the days before he took his own life. Epstein, of course, who had a plea deal from years before and was accused of sexual abuse at the time he wrote it. A letter like that written to another sex abuser. Does it have any legal significance?
Well, I don't know how much legal significance it has. It certainly corroborates what...
They were some stupid tweets, though. She hit that hard J. Yes, dude. They were. From 2011. Okay? The f*** are you talking about? Since then, she's married. She's not anti-Semitic now. Married a Jewish man. Has Jewish children. She was 19 years old in 2011. Yeah, I know. I agree. Insane. 2011 is pretty recent. There's literally people in this chat that were like 4 years old.
We've heard from other victims that Donald Trump had an inclination to grab women and misuse his position in various ways before he became president. And it's consistent with all these other people have said. And it's also consistent with Donald Trump's 50th birthday.
I like when they have former Assistant Special Watergate Prosecutor on to remind us of a time when the American government actually would handle stuff like this. And and there was a sense of normalcy. Remember Watergate, guys? I mean, obviously you don't remember it. None of us were alive back then. But remember reading about it when presidents got up to some... There was actually an investigation that was conducted. People will hold them to account. Yeah. I guess Watergate now is just every day. There's a Watergate level scandal that takes place virtually every day. Virtually every day. And we just go, what are you going to do about it? And I feel like this is the maximum This is the most like intense version of a Watergate level incident. So it doesn't like calling it a Watergate level incident actually undermines how insane this is. International sex trafficking of minors conspiracy amongst like the pedophilic elite, and a very clear cover up from the current Department of Justice to preserve the PR of the current president alongside all of these other politically active individuals and financial elite. This is insane.
Wish to Jeffrey Epstein. So whether or not this would be admissible in a court of law is a whole different story. But certainly from a political standpoint, and from the fact that this is something that Jeffrey Epstein is saying, we know that they were very close and they're very good friends, and that this is pretty damning. I mean, to go on with this letter, it says in that letter, when a young beauty walked by, he loved to grab, snatch, whereas we ended up snatching grub in the mess halls of the system, meaning the prison system.
Focusing on this letter, it really does seem like a waste of time. The FBI has confirmed this alleged letter from Jeffrey Epstein that Larry Nassar is fake. The fake letter was received by the jail and flagged for the FBI at the time. The FBI made this conclusion based on the following facts. The writing does not appear to match Jeffrey Epstein's. The letter was postmarked 3 days after Epstein's death out of Northern Virginia when he was jailed in New York. The return address did not list the jail where Epstein was held and did not include his inmate number, which is required for outgoing mail. This fake letter serves as a reminder that just because a document is released by the department... Yeah, let me tell you something, okay? This is exactly what I also had suspicions over. I'm telling you right now, it does read as fake, but because you can't trust the Department of Justice, it almost feels like they turn around and say, "See, everything else is fake this fake thing that you guys dove into." This possibly fake thing that you guys dove into should be a valuable lesson. Should be a valuable lesson for all of you. Don't jump to conclusions. That's why I told you from the start, don't immediately dive into to new pieces of information that corresponds and confirms your previous confirms your priors, okay? It's not good to do that. Doesn't letters serve to opposing purposes, though? Suicide is real and Trump is a pedo? Yes. That we're going full QAnon? No, I'm telling you, dude. I'm telling you. This, look, just like we talked about the CGI YouTube video of Jeffrey Epstein's suicide recreation that was on some random YouTube page that was sent to the prosecutors by some random conspiracy theorist. There are always going to be silly things that the prosecutors received. Okay? There are always going to be silly things that the prosecutors received, or information that does not reach the level of like hard evidence. And when this kind of stuff is being released, there will be people that dive into different aspects of this conspiracy that corresponds to or that confirms their previous biases, and they'll run along with it. And when you have, oh my God, Hunter Biden on the Sean Ryan show, when you have information like this and the media is covering it, and then later down the line there's like more information that comes out that it's like, oh well, this actually doesn't make sense, then it actually obfuscates the truth. It muddies the waters. It makes people question whether or not Trump is actually connected. I mean, if this fake thing we fell for was confirmed to be fake, then what else is fake? Maybe Trump isn't actually buddies with Jeffrey Epstein, right?
And he signed it saying, "Life is unfair, yours, J. Epstein." So you've got two essentially abusers that are writing to each other. And in the course of that, Jeffrey Epstein references Donald Trump, who has gotten away with all of this.
It is worth noting, obviously, that President Trump or Donald Trump not charged with anything in connection with Jeffrey Epstein at all. It's also possible that Jeffrey Epstein was trying to stick it to Donald Trump, who was president at this point, the moment that the letter was written. Of greater, perhaps, legal significance, Nick, is the other information that came out.
Because the more they focus on this, because when I saw this, the first thing I thought was, well, this is the first piece of, if true, if this letter is real, if this postcard is real, this is the first piece of evidence that you can point to that Jeffrey Epstein actually had suicidal ideation. Okay? Like, I was willing to do an about face. I was willing to admit that my previous assessment that Jeffrey Epstein actually did not kill himself and was kirked instead of kirking himself was maybe wrong, right? But there was also enough. There were too many red flags in the letter, and I don't know why CNN is not questioning the veracity. Maybe because they also are invested in the Jeffrey Epstein actually killed himself narratives. What the fuck are you talking about? If it's real, you're implying the FBI is simultaneously redacting information about Trump while also fabricating evidence implicating him. This makes no sense. No, I'm not saying that this was the FBI's own fabrication. I'm saying that anyone could have sent this letter presenting it as though it was coming from Jeffrey Epstein. Because there isn't even like Epstein's inmate number, for example, in the letter.
Overnight, a letter written by an attorney for the Southern District of New York, which indicated, and this is a verbatim, that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously had been recorded or that we were aware. And at times, on two of the flights, two of the passengers were women.
No, Jeffrey Epstein had no prior relationship with Larry Nassar. And randomly, before he allegedly commits suicide, he decides to send a postcard to Larry Nassar being like, well, from one pedophile to the next, isn't it crazy that the president is a pedophile just like us, but we get the short end of the stick and we go to prison? I'm going to kill myself, by the way, and you'll probably hear about it by the time this letter gets to you, especially considering that the letter was postmarked days after he had killed himself. Allegedly killed himself. How the fuck does that make sense?
Who would be possible witnesses in a Ghislaine Maxwell case. Now, again, this letter was written at the time late in Donald Trump's first term when he was president. But the idea that Trump had been on a plane with two people who were witnesses potentially in a federal case, what's the significance there?
Well, the significance is that Donald Trump would, of course, be a potential witness as well, which means that he could have been called at the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. So that's pretty shocking, the fact that he could.
Yeah, this is way, way more important than the Larry Nassar letter, in my opinion. The idea that, here, I'll read it for you. For your situational awareness, wanted to let you know that the flight records we received yesterday, this is about Epstein's flight records, and this is Assistant U.S. Attorney, Southern District of New York, emailing someone on the Ghislaine case, a prosecutor on the Ghislaine case. For your situational awareness, wanted to let you know that the flight records we received yesterday reflect that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than previously has been reported or that we were aware, including during the period we would expect the charge in a Maxwell case. In particular, he is listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 93 and 96, including at least 4 flights on which Maxwell was also present. He is listed as having traveled with, among others, and at various times, Marla Maples, his daughter Tiffany, and his son Eric. On one flight in 1993, he and Epstein are the only 2 listed passengers. On another, the only 3 passengers are Epstein, Trump, and then 20-year-old bleep, most likely a victim. On 2 other flights, 2 of the passengers, respectively, were women who would be possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. We've just finished reviewing the records, more than 100 pages of very small script, and didn't want any of this to be a surprise down the road. As in, we might call into question Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who famously, if you recall, after the Ghislaine Maxwell case was unveiled, said, "I wish her well. She was a good person." And Donald Trump now who's still talking about potentially floating a pardon in Ghislaine Maxwell's direction, or at least some sort of like sentencing leniency. Or we know for a fact that the Department of Justice, at the direction of Donald Trump, has already put Ghislaine Maxwell, who is the only surviving witness and co-conspirator that we know of at the very least, that could tie Donald Trump back to Jeffrey Epstein, for the record, who literally got a private one-on-one meeting with former Trump Defense Attorney Todd Blanche, who is now the Deputy Attorney General, who then put Ghislaine Maxwell in a better prison after a meeting that they took one-on-one, where she said stuff like Donald Trump is actually a incredibly kind guy, very handsome. He was always a gentleman. He was always a gentleman around all the girls. Ghislaine Maxwell, who also is a famous perjurer. She was charged with perjury, and then they dropped it because she was already getting hit with all these other crimes anyway. So they didn't even further prosecute the perjury case, who very clearly lied on the stand over and over again about not only just her involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, but the involvement of other notable figures such as Prince Andrew.
Would have been called as a witness. That's something that I don't think has been reported before. And it also goes to Donald Trump's knowledge of what Epstein was doing. I mean, don't forget, he's been backing off at every point he can, claiming that he had no idea that Jeffrey Epstein was doing anything illegal. But as these Epstein files come out with the drip, 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 we have learned that Donald Trump knew a bit more than he's acknowledged. For example, there's the email of April 2nd, 2011, where it reflects an email between Epstein and Maxwell, where it says that Donald Trump spent hours in Epstein's house with Virginia, who is one of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein.
Makes you almost forget the doodles. Oh, I haven't forgotten the doodles, baby. Remember, they were so tight that Donald Trump was literally doodling naked women with like weird poetry to Jeffrey Epstein and to celebrate his birthday.
Sexual escapades.
Of course, Virginia Giuffre, before she died, said that Donald Trump did not do anything wrong or untoward. And it's also worth noting that the plane trips in question here were between 1993 and 1996, a time before Epstein was charged with anything. Nick Ackerman, a lot of context here, a lot of new information coming out. CNN continues to sift through it. Thank you very much.
I suspect many Trump dick riders will use this as an opportunity at the peak of his unpopularity to jump ship, by the way. I'm just letting you know, so get ready for that. The moment of vindication is already coming. But just as a lot of the podcasters turned around and were like, oh, we were lied to a couple months prior to this, you will see even further ship jumpers at this point, because this stuff is so bad for Trump that even the biggest glazers, the open glazers of Trump that don't have any sort of like real ideological investment in pushing MAGA or pushing Trump or pushing the Republican movement, but they're simply grifting to reach as large an audience as possible, will turn around after dick riding Trump into fucking oblivion. They will turn around and say, I don't know, maybe Trump isn't the best guy. You'll see. Like I said, I've told you, Joe Rogan probably will be one of those people, even though he's diving deep into the I'm a Christian now angle. Yeah, Trump has lost his cool factor for a lot of these vicious bullies. Everybody knew they were friends before this election and these people didn't care. Yeah, except guess what? We did. We covered it all the time. We covered it all the time. And I was even mad about the Democrats not actually leaning into this to this open friendship that Donald Trump had with Jeffrey Epstein. And I also explained the reason why Donald Trump, or the reason why the Democrats didn't actually lean into this, because Bill Clinton was, I guess, too useful at the time for the Democrats because they're stupid. They wanted to protect the other co-conspirators or other high-profile Democrats that have been involved with Jeffrey Epstein. And it's not just even Bill Clinton. It's like Larry Summers and all these other people that like have deep ties to the Democratic Party. And I say useful. I'm using that jokingly because he obviously wasn't useful. Okay, the We're Out Brigade is already happening in real time. Sarah Longwell. Earlier this year, Kash Patel testified under oath that the internal files contain no credible information that Epstein trafficked young women to anyone other than himself. Today, the DOJ released internal emails referring to 10 co-conspirators. There were so many good opportunities for Democrats to jettison Bill Clinton, and keeping him prominently involved and in good standing was such a suicidal choice by party elites. Yep, I'm telling you, we were there. We were there. But it's the same principle behind like dick riding Israel into oblivion as they supported Israel's genocide of Palestinians, right? It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous because it's not, oh my God, most memorable moments on the year on the story.
Tariffs. Would you consider, where's that money going to go? Would you consider giving it back to taxpayers?
I love going back to Fox News every now and then throughout the entire day to see what they're actually tuning into, what they're actually covering. And it's always like Trump's best moments. This week, my MAGA boss said Trump should be shot for the Epstein stuff. She attended Amerifest last year, but didn't go this year because she said they are grifters and Israel killed Kirk. Yeah, Israel, Epstein, lack of movement on all of the promises that Trump made in terms of fixing people's economic hardships, tying it all back to trans people and immigrants. All of that stuff is falling apart. And when you combine everything, especially when you factor in the reality that Donald Trump did not have this popular mandate that people presented it, even though people presented it as though Donald Trump had this like popular mandate. Okay, of course people are inevitably going to go, I'm out. I'm out. It's time for buyer's remorse. And for the average person that experiences buyer's remorse, no matter at what point they experience it, I'm there with you. Okay, I will take you. I will guide you into the promised land, okay? I will explain to you why you might have been duped with the hopes that you don't get duped again in the future. There are, however, grifters who don't have any interest in pursuing the truth whatsoever, but simply lean on the Trump train, the rocket ship, just like many of them who leaned on the Andrew Tate side of things, right? There were plenty of people who leaned into Andrew Tate and were like, oh my God, Andrew Tate is so based. Those exact same people then leaned onto the Trump train, except for Nicki Minaj, who is seemingly doing it at the worst possible time she could have, right? December 2024, Donald Trump's re-election shocks begs the question, has America entered a new epoch of MAGA's cultural victory? December 2025, they're looking into it, but the Trump DOJ wants you to know they're pretty sure the Epstein letter about him being a pedophile is bogus. And there are still, as someone who has been there from the start, as someone who has talked about this shit from the start, I need you to understand something, okay? There are still so many questions that that the media is not asking, okay? Mainstream media is not asking, specifically Jeffrey Epstein's ties to Israel and Israeli intelligence, okay? If you noticed, that is absent from the conversation, okay? That is completely absent from the conversation for some reason. Jeffrey Epstein's ties to American intelligence is absent from the conversation for some weird reason. Just remember, there are still many questions that we have. There are many questions that we have about not only Jeffrey Epstein's ties to American and foreign intelligence, but also Jeffrey Epstein's financial ties that are well documented with extensive paper trail, extensive records. Okay? Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just like a random prolific pedophile who hung out with a bunch of wealthy and super famous people, okay? It didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen by accident. No matter how hard the New York Times tries to present it as such. This is also important. New York Times keeps talking about Jeffrey Epstein, right? And they tie Jeffrey Epstein to Donald Trump in a partisan way. That's fine, right? Because there is obviously a lot of a lot of interest there, and I totally understand why you would do that. Donald Trump was besties with Jeffrey Epstein, all this stuff, right? But the New York Times, weirdly enough, consistently pushes this narrative that Jeffrey Epstein was, financially successful, or maybe a con man that was able to dupe all these financial elites and yada, yada, yada. It's strange. It's strange to me. I find it very strange that they don't actually investigate the additional crimes that were, taking place, specifically on the financial side. All of the investigations that the New York Times has conducted on the financial side have led to, do you really read articles? Yes, all the time, nonstop. Confused. There's already good reporting about his involvement in Iran-Contra. Why are you pretending this is the whole story? Why didn't the New York Times do this reporting years ago? New York Times has been protecting the Epstein class for decades. This is the Daily's own audience. The Daily is the most popular podcast in the country. I listen to the Daily all the time. It has become even more frustrating as of late when I listen to the Daily on the Epstein stuff. Wow, this is going to be a steaming pile of ... Crazy not to mention Israel in this piece. Don't say Israel. Leave that to Fuentes. What can go wrong? This actually is unironically a great take, because if the New York Times doesn't cover the Israel connection with Jeffrey Epstein, then people are inevitably going to go to people like Nick Fuentes, who are covering the connection to Israel. Okay? That's a great point. It's one that I consistently hammer over and over again. If you leave a void in mainstream resources that the market is demanding, if you look at people going, hey, this is kind of strange, Jeffrey Epstein is profiled alongside and publicly was hanging out with Ehud Barak, former prime minister of Israel. Jeffrey Epstein has a shit ton of emails with Ehud Barak talking about selling Israeli surveillance technology to other countries. Why is that never getting covered in the New York Times? People are eventually going to look for others who do this coverage, okay? And while it's drop site and people like myself that do this coverage with regular frequency, there are obviously, especially with the algorithmic boost that right-wingers get, there are obviously going to be a lot of right-wingers who do end up being the voice of reason in this circumstance, who were able to farm credibility due to the messaging void in mainstream outlets, in liberal outlets, and specifically Democrats in general, who don't call into question this very obvious tie. Taking a wild guess, you're not going to report anything about Israel, so I'm not going to listen. The truth is out there. Let me guess, CIA and Mossad will not be mentioned in this report. Drop site news site did an investigation, uncovered facts that this New York Times report willfully and accidentally ignored. Is this a smokescreen? Yeah, the New York Times attacked drop site news over factual reporting on Epstein's connections to intelligence agencies. We report on facts that we are able to confirm, not supposition. Epstein, Israel, and the CIA, how the Iran-Contra planes landed at Les Wexner's base. Okay, this was drop site news' coverage. If NPR and the New York Times turn around and say, oh, all of these ties to Israel Jeffrey Epstein clearly has is simple suspicion, is nothing more than a conspiracy, okay, and you shouldn't look in that direction at all, a lot of people are going to stop listening to the New York Times, okay? And many of them hopefully will find the drop site coverage and will support drop site, who are fantastic investigative reporters, as you guys know, good friends of mine. I'm honored I'm so privileged to be able to call them my colleagues, my friends. But there are plenty of other people in the commentary sphere who will be tying the actual conspiracy to do a crime back to conspiracy theories surrounding Jews and whatnot. I was able to find one reference to Iran in the documents in 1998 where the U.S. government sued Epstein. This related to a home the U.S. government had leased to Epstein in 1992 that used to belong to the former deputy consulate general of Iran. They had taken possession of the building after the revolution. At some point, Epstein had gone without their permission and subleased the building to a bunch of people. The U.S. government sued to evict Epstein and all the occupants and to confiscate the rent Epstein had taken without permission. I looked a lot, but wasn't able to find the name of who that former deputy consul general was. To which Matthew Petty responds with, Dropsite also did a big investigative report on how Epstein first came into wealth just before the files dropped. And part of it was Epstein's involvement with some Iran-Contra figures. although, of course, that's indirect. TLDR is that young Epstein started a tax avoidance business with Cyrus Hashemi's lawyer and ended up obtaining the planes from Southern Air Transport, SAT, the CIA front airline that ran guns to Iran via Israel and cocaine from Nicaragua after its bankruptcy. Epstein also worked for Douglas Lease, an alleged gun runner and associate of Saudi gun runner Adnan Khashoggi, Jamal Khashoggi's father. Epstein also had a fake passport that listed his address in Saudi Arabia. Pretty weird stuff adjacent to the CIA's arms smuggling to Iran without a single smoking gun. Sorry, I misstated. He didn't obtain the planes after their bankruptcy. He was using their planes as a part of the company was in the process of falling apart. Yeah. But, just nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. He's just a con man. If you look at the New York Times coverage and the New York Times profile on this, and they've done a lot of reporting, investigative reporting on Jeffrey Epstein and how he actually was able to get the wealth. Okay. How he was able to secure the wealth that he had. It's nothing to see here. He was a low-level con man who was able to con increasingly wealthier and wealthier individuals. He certainly wasn't engaged in any sort of espionage or any sort of activities that the American government at the time was and its State Department at the time was engaging in, even if it was directly aligned with one another. Okay?